I still remember the exact moment my life started to unravel. It wasn't in some dramatic movie scene. It was 2:14 a.m. in my tiny one-bedroom apartment when I opened my front door and saw her standing there, soaked from the rain, shivering, and holding every bag she owned. And the worst part? I had only been joking when I said, "Move in with me." My name's Ethan Collins. I'm 26 years old, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. By day, I'm a junior architect in a firm that's too obsessed with deadlines and not obsessed enough with people's mental health. By night, I'm, well, just another guy trying to survive. I'm telling you this because this is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, I joked, move in with me. She arrived the next morning with all her bags. It started at the office. Her name was Clara Weston, and she was the kind of woman who made you forget you were in a fluorescent-lit cubicle. She had this way of laughing, like she'd been holding her breath all week and finally let it out. We worked on the same team, and somehow, over coffee runs and late-night deadlines, we became friends. Well, friends was the label we slapped on it, because neither of us wanted to admit there was something heavier, messier, and much more dangerous underneath. The problem? Clara was dating someone, a guy named Adrian. I'd only met him once at an office party, but the look in his eyes when he shook my hand told me he already knew I was a problem. It was a Thursday night. We'd been working on this massive pitch for weeks, and the stress was eating both of us alive. She stayed late, way past when she should have gone home. Around midnight, she was sitting on the edge of my desk, scrolling through apartments on her phone. "I can't take it anymore, Ethan," she groaned. "My landlord's hiking the rent again, and my place is falling apart. The shower doesn't even get hot water now." I laughed, tired, reckless, not thinking. "Just move in with me." It was a joke. I meant it the way you say, just quit your job when someone's having a bad day. But she froze, looked at me with this strange mix of curiosity and something else I couldn't name. "You'd let me?" she asked quietly. I shrugged, still smiling. "Sure. Why not?" We went back to work after that. Or at least I thought we did. The next morning, I was running late. I'd barely slept, my brain fogged from stress. I got home that night planning to crash early, but at 2:14 a.m., the knock came. Slow, heavy, like someone debating whether to even be there. I opened the door, and there she was. Clara, rain dripping from her hair, mascara smudged, 3 suitcases beside her. "Ethan," she whispered. I didn't know where else to go. And that's when I saw it, the faint bruise on her cheekbone. I let her in without asking questions. Made her tea. Gave her my hoodie because she was shivering. She sat on the couch, hands wrapped around the mug like she was afraid it might disappear. We didn't talk about the bruise. We didn't talk about Adrian. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. Instead, she just said, "I'll pay rent. I swear. I'll stay out of your way. I just can't go back there." I wanted to ask. God, I wanted to ask. But something in her eyes told me that if I pushed, she'd leave. And I couldn't let that happen. Days turned into weeks. She moved into my spare room, which was really just a storage space I cleared out. We found a rhythm. Morning coffee together. Separate commutes. Sometimes she'd cook dinner when I worked late. But the tension, it was always there. Like 2 tectonic plates under the same ground, waiting to collide. I'd catch her looking at me a second too long. She'd come home some nights smelling faintly of perfume, even though she said she'd just been out for a walk. And then there was Adrian. He started showing up outside our office building. Once, I saw him leaning against his car, staring right at me. He didn't say a word, just smirked and got back in his car. One Friday, after an exhausting week, Clara and I ordered takeout and drank a little too much wine. We ended up on the couch, laughing about something stupid, when she suddenly went quiet. "You're the only person who's ever made me feel safe," she said. Her hand brushed mine. I should have pulled away. Instead, I turned to face her. She was looking at me like she was trying to memorize me. And then, she kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, messy, like someone trying to erase their own loneliness. When she pulled back, she whispered, "I'm sorry." But the way her hand lingered on my chest told me she wasn't. The following Monday, my boss called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. "Ethan, I don't know how to say this, but Adrian came to see me." My stomach dropped. "He says you've been interfering in his relationship, and he hinted that if you don't back off, he might take something to HR that could damage your career here." I left the office in a daze. When I got home that night, Clara was cooking dinner like nothing was wrong. I told her about Adrian's visit. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she said something that knocked the air out of me. "I know," she said quietly, "because I told him where you work." Her words hit me like a brick to the chest. "I told him where you work." I stood there in the doorway, still holding my bag from work, rain dripping from my jacket, feeling like the floor had just tilted beneath me. "Why the hell would you do that?" I asked. My voice wasn't angry. It was something worse. Flat. Cold. Clara didn't look up from the stove. Because he already knew, Ethan. And because she hesitated. Because it was the only way to keep him from showing up here. We sat at the table, dinner untouched, the smell of pasta hanging heavy between us. She finally told me what happened the night she showed up with her bags. Adrian hadn't just been controlling. He'd been watching her, checking her phone, following her after work. She said she'd found a GPS tracker under her car. "He told me if I ever left," she whispered, "he'd ruin not just my life, but anyone who tried to help me." Her voice cracked when she said it, and God help me, I believed her. But a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving something out. By the next week, things at the office had shifted. My coworkers had started giving me those sidelong glances, the kind that say they've heard something but aren't going to say it out loud. And my boss, well, he suddenly seemed a lot more interested in double-checking my work. One night, as I was packing up, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You're not as smart as you think." No name, no context, just that. I didn't need to guess who it was from. Clara and I kept living together like nothing had happened. But the air between us was different now. Some nights, she'd retreat to her room early, locking the door. Other nights, she'd come sit next to me on the couch, curling her legs under her like she belonged there. One night, I found her asleep on the couch, my hoodie pulled tight around her. Her phone was still lit, an unsent text on the screen. "I think I'm falling for you." I didn't know if it was meant for me or for someone else. It was my sister, Hannah, who first voiced what I was afraid to say. I'd called her one night just to talk, and when I mentioned Clara was still living with me, she went quiet for a moment. "Ethan, you have to be careful. People like that, they can take you down with them." I bristled. "She's not like that. She's been through hell." But Hannah wouldn't let it go. "Do you remember Dad's last year? How Mom tried to protect him from things we didn't know about until it was too late. Some people keep secrets, Ethan, not to survive, but to control." Her words sat in my gut like stones. 2 weeks later, it happened. I came home to find Adrian sitting on the steps of my building, smoking like he had all the time in the world. "Evening," he said, flicking the cigarette away. "You need to leave," I told him, but he just smiled. "Funny thing about your new roommate. She's got quite the history. You think you know her? You don't know a damn thing." He leaned in, his voice low. "Ask her about Marcus." And just like that, he walked away. That night, over dinner, I asked, "Who's Marcus?" The fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto the plate. Her face went pale. "Where did you hear that name?" she asked. "I ran into Adrian," I said. "He told me to ask." She stared at me for a long time before saying, "Marcus was my brother." Her voice was tight, controlled. "He died 3 years ago. That's all you need to know." But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. A few nights later, I was working late in my bedroom when I heard her talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice was low, urgent. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because trust had already started to crack. But I opened my door and stepped quietly into the hallway. And that's when I heard her say it. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Just give me a little more time." The world tilted again. The air felt thick. And I knew, whatever game we were playing, I was already in too deep. Her words, "He doesn't suspect anything," kept looping in my head like a broken record. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening for every creak of the floorboards, every door hinge, wondering if she knew I'd overheard her. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was done waiting for the truth to fall into my lap. I called Hannah. "Do you remember me telling you about Clara?" I asked. "Yeah. The one living with you? I need a favor. Can you look up someone named Marcus Weston? He'd be around Clara's age. Died about 3 years ago." Hannah hesitated. "Ethan, what's going on? Just, please." By that evening, she called back, and what she told me didn't make sense. Not at first. "Marcus Weston was arrested in 2019, she said. "Wire fraud, embezzlement, and something about using shell companies to launder money. He posted bail, disappeared, and then his body was found in a motel room in Nevada." I felt my stomach twist. "What about Clara?" "That's the thing," Hannah said. "She was listed as one of his business partners." That night, I walked through my own apartment like it belonged to someone else. Every coffee mug she'd washed, every book she'd left on the couch. It all felt staged now, like props in a set I'd been tricked into living in. When she came home, she was in a good mood. Too good. She tossed her keys on the counter and smiled like nothing was wrong. But I couldn't fake it anymore. "We need to talk," I said. I told her what I'd found out. Every word, every detail Hannah had dug up. Her face didn't crumple in guilt. She didn't even deny it. Instead, she leaned back against the counter and said, "Then I guess you know more than I planned for you to." I stared at her. Planned? Clara's voice was calm, almost too calm. "When Marcus died, Adrian took over everything. Every account, every name. But there were loose ends. People Marcus trusted. People who could either help me or destroy me. You were one of them." My pulse was in my ears. "Me? I didn't even know him." "No," she said softly. "But your father did." The name hit me like a punch. My dad had been gone for almost a decade. He'd been an accountant, quiet, private, not the kind of man who made enemies. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She took a step closer. "Your father handled accounts for one of Marcus's shell companies. He wasn't dirty, Ethan. I think he didn't even know. But Marcus, he told me your father was the only one who kept clean records. And those records..." She trailed off, her eyes darting to my bedroom. Suddenly, I remembered the box under my bed, the one my mom had given me after Dad died. Old files, ledgers, things I'd never bothered to open. I didn't even need to look to know she'd been in my room. The thought made my skin crawl. "This whole thing," I said, my voice shaking. "You moving in, the late nights, Adrian. It's all been about that box." She didn't deny it. "I needed to know if you had it. Adrian thinks it's worth millions. Not in cash, but in leverage. You have no idea what kind of people are tied to those numbers." I stepped back, putting space between us. "So what now? You take it and disappear." She looked at me for a long moment. "I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. But if you make me choose between you and staying alive, I'm choosing me." And then, as if to prove the point, she walked into her room and locked the door. That night, I sat in the dark with the box on the coffee table. My hands hovered over the lid, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to open it, find whatever was inside, and throw it all in the fire. Another part of me wanted answers. I didn't hear her door open, didn't realize she was behind me until her shadow fell across the table. "Don't," she whispered, but I was already lifting the lid. Inside was something I never expected. Inside the box were no stacks of cash, no hard drives, just paper, dozens of manila folders, each labeled in my father's neat handwriting. At first glance, they looked like tax forms, invoices, boring stuff. But as I flipped through, I saw company names I didn't recognize, names that matched the articles Hannah had found about Marcus Weston's shell companies. And then, I found the letters. They were written to someone named M.W. Marcus Weston. The first few were friendly, almost casual. But as the years went on, the tone changed. My father was asking questions, warning him about transactions that can't be explained, telling him to walk away before it's too late. The last letter was dated 3 months before my father died. It was short, just one sentence. I can't protect you anymore. I looked up at Clara, my hands shaking. You knew. She nodded. My brother trusted your dad, and your dad tried to save him. But Adrian was already in too deep. He took everything after Marcus died, every account, every contact. The only thing he couldn't touch was whatever your father had kept hidden. Her voice cracked. Ethan, those records could expose people who would kill to stay invisible. If Adrian gets them, I'm dead. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the last month had been one lie stacked on another. So you came here to what? Trick me into handing them over? Her eyes softened, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked vulnerable. I came here because you were the only person I thought might care enough to listen before it's too late. We stood there in silence. Rain pattered against the windows. My pulse thundered in my ears. Finally, I closed the box. You can stay tonight, I said quietly, but tomorrow you leave. When I woke, the box was gone. So was she. No note, no call, no text, just the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the hallway, and the echo of her voice saying, I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. Life went on, or at least it pretended to. Work was still tense. Adrian stopped showing up, but I knew that didn't mean he was gone. One night, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a single page, folded once. It was one of my father's letters, the last one, in Clara's handwriting. At the bottom, she'd added, I'm sorry. You were right not to trust me, but you were also the only good thing in all of this. It's been months now. I still catch myself looking for her face in a crowd, wondering if she made it out alive, or if Adrian finally caught up. I don't know if what she told me about my father was the whole truth, or just enough of it to keep me from throwing that box away. But here's what I do know. Love can blind you, not just to a person's flaws, but to their intentions. We think betrayal comes like a thunderclap, sudden and loud. But sometimes, it's a whisper in the dark, a locked door, a missing box, and if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life mistaking danger for connection.